manifestation, the complete revelation of Pink's madness that we witnessed in the last song, Waiting for the Worms, and which reaches towards a climax at the end of that song, is abruptly, unceremoniously cut short by stop. On the album, we hear a stick jammed in the spokes by the final bowed chord. In the movie, it's Pink screaming stop. Either way, it does the job. But before diving into this song, I'd like to take a moment and remind you of some of the things that I have said along the way throughout the analysis of this album, a little collection of quotes of myself. Actually, I didn't mean to let them take away my soul. And I want to say again, oh, Pink, still you have to blame it on the them. It feels weird reading my own comments. Even now, here in your moment of reflection, you will not take responsibility for who you are and what you are becoming. Will you never learn? Or this one. Actually, this right here is one of the keys to why the show must and will go on, because to step away, to turn back, requires accountability to one's own self. And that is one thing we've seen over and over again along this journey that Pink will not do. He will not look within himself for his part in this saga. He will not accept that he is his own worst enemy, that it is not about they and them at all. In fact, this brings some clarity to what has happened in the last few songs. There are moments in which it began to look like he's pulling himself together, that he's getting his life in order, finding a focus. But no, he's only finding ways to function without doing the things that he needs to do. That is, to own his part in this situation. The crux of the message is this. Without Pink owning his part, he can never change. And in spite of the self-awareness and introspection that has sometimes appeared in the past few songs, he still does not acknowledge any responsibility. Therefore, the show must go on. I feel that at this moment in the album, it's important to remind ourselves of those past moments, of these crossroads that we witnessed on Pink's journey, because now, here, we are about to witness a miracle. Stop is the shortest song on this entire album, but don't let its brevity fool you. It may be short, but it's also incredibly important because of how it shapes the album's message. And actually, I'll talk a bit about what it does here, but a few episodes down the road, we'll come back to this idea of how it shapes the album's message. Musically, this is a music box song, isn't it? We even get to hear it winding down at the end. Don't you think that it mimics the simple joys and magical world of a young child? And then, in Water's voice, we hear the tear-stained, desperate face of a little one begging to get off a ride that has maybe frightened him more than he can bear. Lyrically, there are some profound depths lurking beneath the little boy tired of his adventure in the grown-up's world tone of the text. Notably, two special human abilities serve as the pillars on which this song stands. First, the power of decision. And second, self-accountability. Let's take a few moments to delve into each of these. First, the power of decision. What made Pink decide to stop? Did anyone push him towards that decision? Did anything compel him against his wish? Did he end up here through some constraining circumstances, like, for example, war or betrayal? Or perhaps he simply ran out of means by which to continue down the path he'd chosen? But no, none of these. It was simply his own decision, driven by his own conscience. Which brings me to the second point, self-accountability or conscience. This is what drove him to this decision, not some external force, nor deficiency in resources. Rather, it came from his inner self, and he simply chose to respond to that desire. This reveals a lot about Waters' own views on personal and social responsibility. And yes, I know there's a significant body of scientific research out there which challenges this belief that we humans can simply choose our way through life. And I'm also certainly not suggesting that individuals with mental illnesses have the ability to just decide to think or behave differently than they do. I think it's pretty clear at this point that my understanding of this album is that it is a parable about how we, meaning normal, healthy, functional individuals, can so easily go wrong. But I get enough messages from concerned viewers who feel that I'm dismissing the gravity and seriousness of mental illness that I feel like I need to reiterate this fact right here. So keep that in mind as we proceed. So through the character of Pink, we get to see two alternatives. First, the evolution of a menace to society as Pink chooses to close himself off, to build walls and shut himself away, to nurture his dark side, and we each have a dark side within us, to allow it to become cancerous, to consume his entire being, to metastasize and spread even beyond himself, infecting society with its deadly ways. And then this same Pink suddenly puts on the brakes, decides, yes, he decides to stop, to end the madness, to take a different perspective than that which he's been indulging towards his mother, his schooling, his teachers, society as a whole. The attitude that we've been watching develop along the way into this grotesque, evil creature full of oppression and violence and death. And this decision to show Pink choosing one way and then the other within the same narrative highlights the message that everyone has the ability to choose, and each of us is responsible for the choices that we make. And since this whole album draws so heavily on World War II characters and events, both as its source of inspiration and as the vehicle for its message, it makes perfect sense for us to reach in similar directions as we unpack it. Have you ever watched the movie called The Reader? I actually recently reviewed it on my movie channel, Amy's Cut, and there's a link there if you want to see it. But there's another great one too, Judgment at Nuremberg. In that movie, one argument that the defendants used was that it was the law of the land. They were simply law-abiding citizens, and nobody should be punished for doing that, right? But Judge Dan Haywood's answer: one cannot cancel morality or personal responsibility by hiding behind the law of the land. In other words, not only do we have the ability to choose how we relate to the world around us, but we also have a moral responsibility to do so. There is potential in each one of us to go either, and sometimes both, directions, for good or for evil. Ultimately, the path we choose belongs to each and every one of us. So, Pink has now decided he wants to go home. Meaning, he's decided he doesn't want to go in directions that are foreign to his inner self and hostile towards humanity. He knows that what he's been doing has been artificial. It's been a putting on of a uniform, a show, an act, unnatural towards life itself, a betrayal of who he really is. He's felt the effects of his self-imposed isolation, his choice to nurture hatred and animosity. He's seen how these have grown, both in strength and size. and he's frightened. No, he's terrified by what he has found within himself. Now, of course, all of this has only taken place within his imagination, within his own mind. But history demonstrates that such a delusional mind can easily impact an entire nation, even the whole world. Well, Pink said stop. He chose to stop. Now, there's a second lesson in this song, beyond that of one's power to choose. Okay, so what if he decides to stop? What if he wants to take off the uniform to leave the show, to return home? But, he says, but not yet. In spite of the fact that he's called a halt, and that he wants to do these things, he still remains in his cell. He's waiting. Why? Whatever for? What is he waiting for? Because obviously he's no longer waiting for the worms to come. How come he doesn't just get up and leave? Isn't it enough that he's chosen to get himself on the right path? Maybe for some, but not for Pink. There's something that I notice about the character Pink. He doesn't cut corners. He's conscientious about every detail. He's sensitive. He's astute. He's relentless and thorough. Perhaps that's one of the reasons that he experiences life so intensely, and why forgiveness is so hard for him, why he can't seem to cut any slack for the mistakes others have made along the way. And so we get to learn even more from him, because Pink has to know. He has to know if he has been the guilty one all this time. As I said a bit ago, Pink's wearing a uniform, his putting on a show, was an act unnatural towards life itself. His embrace and adoption of an alter ego that is entirely foreign to his true self was a betrayal of who he really is. A betrayal. Pink, the traitor. Pink, the one who's been unfaithful. Pink, the destroyer. Not his mother, not his teacher, not his wife. They aren't the guilty ones. It's Pink. Well, I anticipate. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. The judge has not yet spoken. And yet, Pink suspects the truth. I find this part of the song to be painfully beautiful. Conscience, personal accountability towards oneself, and by extension, towards society. This is the second pillar on which this song is built. The second exclusively human ability. There's a book for musicians called The Perfect Wrong Note, which is a great read if you're into that sort of thing. The main premise is that mistakes are an integral part of healthy learning, of real learning. If we don't allow ourselves to make mistakes, then the only way left to learn is to program ourselves, to drill. But by allowing ourselves to be free, to give ourselves permission to accidentally overshoot the mark, and to then fall short the next time, to allow ourselves to feel each path of travel as we make the journey. If we relate to it correctly, meaning don't just shrug and go again, but actually take time to observe, to reflect, to process, to learn before making the next attempt. That is how one learns to master an instrument, to make music freely, passionately, beautifully, without inhibition, so that the outcome isn't crippled by wooden, programmed recitations. And it's true for life as well. If Pink is to do any better than before, he has to take the time to observe, to reflect, to process, to learn the lessons. Pink, who's blamed everyone and everything but himself for where he ended up, is now asking the question, was I an active participant? Was I a determining factor in my isolation? Was I actually not a mere helpless victim of this cruel world? This self-accountability is part of what makes us healthy human beings, which is why when we see someone who's lost this ability, we often ask, what's wrong with him? In the next song, The Trial, we find out that the prisoner who now stands before you was caught red-handed, showing feelings of an almost human nature. And what I want to emphasize now is this. I have to know, repeated over and over again. For Pink, there's no way around it. He can't simply get up, walk away, go home. Not Pink. He's not going to leave like that. For Pink, there's nobody else pushing him into this trial. Pink says, I have to know. If I don't understand, if I don't find out what role I have played in all of this, I cannot go home because I will not have learned a thing. Therefore, I will not be able to be myself. I have to know. And as the piano music box is winding down slower, 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 we get to hear Pink's voice saying, have to know, have to know, have to know. And with the echo of the last word of the previous line superimposed, time, time, time. And so what we end up with is not only have to know, but as it fades away, it becomes more and more time to know, time to know. Isn't that a wonderful way to end the song? With this revelation that all this time, any moment of it, we could even say every moment of it, we can step back and ask the question, am I guilty? It's never too soon to ask, and as long as we're still breathing, it's never too late. The best time is now. Time to know. Time to know. Now, the movie presents a musical variant of this song, which I will save for when I do the movie at the end of this Journey Through the Wall album. But I'm going to at least mention now that the movie scene ends with a security guard, the same one who let the groupies pass by in Young Lust, opening the stall door, which is another metaphorical door in the wall and a prequel to The Trial. As I said at the beginning, there is surprising depth to this song, which lasts a mere 30 seconds, and it's one which has come to hold a special place in my affections on this album. And it only gets better from here. I'll see you next time when we step into the courtroom and watch the trial go down.